Welcome to Anytown University. My name is Jenna Perry, and I am the Dean of Students. Today, I will be facilitating an extensive training session on student affairs. I will be explaining the laws, regulations, and ethical expectations of all staff within this department. I will begin by covering the history of student affairs and its significance on higher education, constitutional rights, federal and state regulations, areas of discrimination, diversity, and lastly, expectations of everyone working in the Student Affairs Department at this university. Starting with the history of student affairs. Student affairs have been around in some shape or form since the inception of higher education. The formal position of a student affairs leader was created in the mid-1800s at the start of coeducation, when male and females started to attend college together. The Dean of Women position was a student affairs position which was in charge of overseeing female students, their behavior, their safety, their separation from male students, and to ensure their academics were held to a high standard. Fast forward to mid-1900s. Prior to the legal age being 18 years old, 21 was the legal age in the United States. Therefore, most college students were considered to be minors. Universities assumed the legal responsibility of in loco parentis, which basically means the university takes on some responsibility of a student's parent, of being a student's parent, because they were underage. This is where universities started to have legal responsibilities associated with the well-being and safety of the students. Student affair personnel were put in place at colleges to oversee the well-being of students by ensuring their safety and to also reduce the institutional liability of students, that considering that they were acting as parents or acting as some of the rights of parents. It is a duty of parents to ensure that their children are taken care of, and that's along the same lines of what universities were ethically and legally responsible in doing with students that were underage. So basically, if something bad happened to a student, the institution could have been liable. In today's world, and with the legal age 18, most students attending college are of age and legally responsible for themselves. Though the job of a student affairs person still aligns with providing support and services to students while protecting the legal liabilities of the institution, student affairs leaders provide college learning experiences which contribute to the development of a student's social and emotional growth. In a day and age when the cost associated with a college degree is as high as ever, many high school graduates who are in the position to making decisions on whether or not to attend college may not see the benefits and return on investments associated with a college degree, nor may employers in the industry thoroughly understand this. It is extremely important that society understand that college education students do not just possess an academic background, but they have been exposed to a myriad of opportunities associated with college life, which can be attributed to the work of student affairs leaders, and therefore have a comprehensive education and have been educated in a diverse and unique way. Next, I will discuss constitutional laws which impact higher education. The First, Second, and Fifth Amendments all impact higher education. Starting with the First Amendment states, "The government shall make no laws respecting the establishment of religion or preventing people from doing so." It also states people have the right to a free speech, right of press, to peacefully assemble, and to petition the government. Public institutions are extensions from the government, so the separation of church and state applies to them, and they are not allowed to take on a religious affiliation. Though public institutions cannot be faith-based, the institution cannot prevent students from organizing in faith-based groups. Private universities are not extensions of the government and have every right to proclaim specific denominations. The freedom of speech is likely one of the most controversial issues in higher education. Yes, students have the constitutional right to a free speech, but there are limitations associated with this, and student affairs leaders must be aware of these laws. Freedom of speech allows the students the right to entertain controversial speakers on campus, to organize in clubs, to publish student newspapers, and the freedom of speech on social media as long as the speech is not offensive to others, infringes on civility, respect, and human dignity. Some speech which may be offensive is protected by federal civil rights laws and institutional code of conduct policies. All public institutions are government funded, so they are required to enforce Title IX laws, which include sexual harassment in the form of speech. In order to properly enforce freedom of speech laws, it is essential for student affairs leaders to understand them. Another area that student affairs personnel need to be informed on is academic freedom. Students have a working relationship with professors, and professors have academic freedom rights which may create issues with students. It is important to understand the rights of faculty in order to properly handle student-faculty issues and to determine if student or faculty rights are infringed on. Second Amendment rights. The Second Amendment pertains to the right to bear arms. All 50 states in the United States allow citizens the right to carry concealed weapons should they meet the prescribed state requirements. The right to carry a weapon or bear arms on a college campus is determined at the state level, and in some instances is left to the decision of the institution. A state may allow concealed carry on campuses, but the institution may have a policy which prohibits it. Here at Anytown University, we reside in the state of Arizona, and this university is a private university. The Arizona state law only prescribes regulations against concealed firearms at public universities. However, Anytown University chooses to prohibit concealed carry. Fifth Amendment rights. Student affairs leaders must also be aware of the Fifth Amendment rights as they pertain to student justice. When students are involved in disciplinary issues at public institutions, they have a right to a due process. Student affairs leaders are involved in dealing with serious student issues which may have harsh punishments for students, including suspension and expulsion. It is important that student disciplinary issues be handled in a standardized fashion to ensure equal treatment and to prevent the breaches in student constitutional rights. In the event of a student issue, students have the right to have their cases heard, be informed of the charges set against them, and to be briefed on evidence against them, and also to present their side of the story. Private universities are not extensions of the government and are not required by law to provide students a due process, but are traditionally tied to abide by their established disciplinary processes. There are also state and federal regulations which impact student affairs. State and federal issues which impact student affairs range from ensuring the safety of students on campus, which includes sexual assault issues, civil rights laws, FERPA compliance, and a variety of other laws and regulations. It is important to understand there are federal laws which might differ than state law that also may differ from institutional policy. Though private universities may not be required to abide by certain regulations or laws, the government ties federal aid to compliancy, meaning all public universities receive federal aid, so they must comply with federal regulations. Private universities, which accept federal aid, also must comply with these specific regulations. These regulations include a Drug-Free Workplace Act, Drug-Free School and Communities Act, Students' Right to Know Act, which provides the students the right to know institutional information on graduation rates, the Equity in Athletics Act, which is an act that provides students on information on athletic expenditures, the Campus Security Act, also known as Clery Act, which requires campuses to report crime statistics on campus or in the near vicinity, Campus Sex Crime Prevention Act, which requires campuses to notify students of sex offenders in the vicinity of campuses. Title IX regulations, which pertain to sex crimes and harassment and the proper procedures for handling them. Violence Against Women Act, Rights of Human Subjects Research, environmental compliance laws, missing persons laws, which require the institution to notify parents or guardians of students under 21 years old that are missing for more than 24 hours. There are laws associated with students who have disabilities, including compliance with the Americans with Disabilities Act, Federal Educational Rights and Protection, the FERPA Act. Compliance is required with that, and the Patriot Act, which is a FERPA waiver in the event of national security. The FERPA stands for Federal Education Rights and Privacy Act. It is important for student affairs personnel to be aware of all federal and state laws associated with higher education, as it is their job to ensure institutions comply with them. Possible areas of discrimination and how to avoid them. Title IX protects the rights of students based on gender, and the institution itself is liable in the event of discrimination. That is why it is important for student affairs leaders to be aware of possible areas of discrimination, as it can have harsh consequences for the institution. Previous court cases pertaining to discrimination have been associated with female sport opportunities and employment conditions and opportunities for female faculty. Female faculty may not be given equal opportunities as their male counterparts, and this is an example of gender discrimination. Gender identity is another area which is governed by Title IX and must be adequately understood and complied with. Students with disabilities is another area that is subject to discrimination. It is the student affairs personnel who are in charge of making sure campuses are up to ADA standards to ensure the equal rights to accessibility of students and to ensure they are provided with equal opportunities within reason. It is important. Another area of possible discrimination is age. It is important to not prevent students from participation in activities such as clubs, organizations, or program acceptance based on age. Because student affairs leaders employ a team of personnel, they do not only need to understand student rights, but also employee rights. The Civil Rights Act of 1964 prohibits the discrimination of employment based on race, color, religion, sex, and national origin, childbirth, pregnancy, and or related illnesses. The Family and Medical Leave Act provides employees with the right to take up to 12 weeks of work off for medical reasons or to tend a family who suffer from a serious medical issue, for childbirth, or to take care of a baby during the first year of life or an adopted child. Understanding these laws will assist in preventing potential discrimination liabilities. Diversity and what it means to student affairs personnel. Student affairs personnel are often charged with facilitating the recruitment of diverse students, as there are many added benefits to a diverse college culture. Though student affairs leaders promote diversity, it is their job to ensure equitable treatment and inclusion of multicultural diverse individuals. Because diverse students are often exchange students, they require more support than traditional students, as they may be challenged with understanding cultural differences and managing these differences. These differences, though, are what enhance the social development and lead to broader acceptances and differences amongst the students, which lead to further social development. Expectations of Anytown University. Anytown University shares the same standards as the Council for the Advancement of Standards in Higher Education. Employees are expected to reflect excellence in staff supervision, budgeting, strategic planning, communication, multicultural awareness, and problem solving, and assess staff effectiveness through evaluations based on the Council for the Advancement of Standards in Higher Education guidelines. Student affairs leaders must exceed these standards in performance, and professional excellence is expected. Student affairs leaders are expected to continuously display excellence, communicate effectively, and strive to provide opportunity for students. In conclusion, the job of student affairs leaders at any town university is complex and requires an extensive understanding on applicable constitutional, state laws, and institutional policy which govern the daily duties of student affairs personnel. They must adequately understand student issues and liabilities, cultural differences, and also have an adequate understanding of the rights of employees within the department.